Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Board of County Commissioners agenda setting and work session for Tuesday, October 20, 2020. If you'd like to join in and listen, the phone number is 360-252-9020. PIN number is 1234. I'm John Hutchings, the chair of the board, and we also have Vice Chair Commissioner Ty Menser, County Manager Romero Chavez. We have County Treasurer Jeff Gadman joining us, and we have Public Health and Social Services Director Shelley Slaughter and our very own Thurston County Health Officer, Dr. Dimiana Abdulmalik. And we also have Annalise Cole. And whom else do we have, Romero, that I don't see? Keely Marino, I would imagine.
We have quite a few members of the staff, and Commissioner Edwards is running 10 minutes late.
Sure, okay. We're going to go ahead and begin with the COVID-19 update then. Oh, there you are, Shelley. You gonna turn it over? You get started?
Yes, sir.
There you go.
Good morning, commissioners. We continue to see cases of COVID-19 rise across Washington state, with the current data showing 98,661 Washingtonians that have tested positive for COVID-19 since this pandemic began, with 2,258 deaths. Here in Thurston County, we have seen in the last week a record number of cases with 1,610 COVID positive cases to date as of yesterday. Unfortunately, we have also had 22 deaths, with one death occurring in the last week, a female in her 90s associated with a recent long-term care outbreak. That brings our case rate for the Washington Risk Assessment Dashboard to 72.8 cases per 100,000 over the last 2 weeks, inching us into the high transmission rate, which Dr. Abdulmalik may share more about in just a moment. In terms of our hospital capacity, it is currently stable. Between our two hospitals, latest data shows 20 COVID positive patients. That's a bit of an increase. There's been 9 Thurston County residents with COVID-19 hospitalized in the last 7 days. In terms of testing, our positivity rate is 3.7% of all COVID tests in the last week have been positive. The average daily testing number is 474. There have been 52,800 COVID-19 tests conducted in Thurston County to date, and happy to report that our community-based testing outreach continues to be strong. Yesterday, there was a successful community-based mobile testing site held in Tenino for the first time. Today, our team will be back at Rochester Organization of Families from 11 to 2. Tomorrow, we'll be at Interfaith Works from 1 to 3 p.m. and Thursday at Union Gospel Mission from 1 to 3. And our mobile testing sites are free and open to anyone in the public, and you can find more information on our Thurston County website about that. And with that, I will pass it over to Dr. Abdulmalik to add anything else to our report today.
Good morning, commissioners. I'm Dr. Abdulmalik. I'm your health officer for Thurston County. I'd like to echo what Director Slaughter said. So today our risk assessment dashboard does show us at 72.8 cases per 100,000 residents over the past 14 days. And this is a very important number because once we cross that threshold into 75 cases per 100,000 over 14 days, we've entered that high transmission zone. We've been working on our outbreaks. We currently have 6 outbreaks that we're working on that have contributed to this elevated case count. And we've been partnering with, so most of these have been in long-term care facilities, and we've been partnering with those facilities on infection control processes as well as testing. to try to contain and mitigate the spread from these outbreaks. Throughout our community, however, spread continues to be primarily through interpersonal contact. So friends, family, and household spread remains a very strong driver, meaning once an individual in a household gets COVID-19, we're seeing the rest of the household be at extremely high risk to get the disease as well. We have been seeing an uptick in workplace transmission, which is reflective of just that increased baseline transmission rate that we have in our community now. And so going forward, we're urging our Thurston County residents to wear their masks properly, ensure that they cover their nose and mouth with their masks when they're out in public, maintain that 6 feet of distance from non-household members. That's really key to not contracting the disease, avoiding gatherings, because informal in-person gatherings have also been a driver of our increased case counts. I want to make sure that everybody stays home when they're sick. We are seeing cases of folks being symptomatic or mildly symptomatic and, powering through, which might work in another, which might have been people's practice prior to COVID-19. But I really want to encourage folks that if they're experiencing symptoms, to stay home, get tested, and stay home until that test result comes back to them and they've received instructions. In addition to just the washing your hands and covering sneezes and coughs. I think that if we all kind of do our part and follow these kind of common sense guidelines, I think that we can bring this curve down. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor. Ty, do you have any questions of either Shelley or Dr. Abdulmalik?
For Dr. Abdulmalik, I guess you're probably getting the same emails that we get, and the commissioners, I think, got a number of communications about youth sports. I guess I just want to follow up on that. I guess the thrust of the communication is that when we were spiking in the summer, there was some youth sports activity permitted. And you usually come back and report kind of what the contract tracing is showing about the sources. And I don't recall you ever coming back and saying, it looks like we had a spike because of, the workouts that the high schools were doing, or whatever. This is what some folks are saying, is that youth sports being very important to the kids' mental health, not seeming to be a driver, maybe because it's outdoors. So is there a reason to treat that differently? And I guess I'm not challenging you on it. I'm trying to understand what the best response is to that, so I can communicate effectively to the community.
So we have had cases associated with youth sports and with sports in general throughout the pandemic. The reason why we are looking at sports within our schools is as we get close to that high transmission zone, I wanted to start cautiously with the high transmission sports precautions, just as we're phasing all of this in, because prior to that, in terms of school sports, the guidance was to wait until there was some in-person learning at all grade levels. Our colleagues at the governor's office and DOH have recognized the importance of school sports, and we, along with them, are recommending a cautious, phased-in approach to sports in the schools. And right now, because of how close we are to the high transmission zone, we wanted to start in that category, utilizing those precautions, as well as the precautions that were in place over the summer that seemed to during which time, while there may have been a few cases, we we didn't see large outbreaks. But it's the key thing here really is cautious, phased in, making sure that we have the protocols in place to keep students and staff safe.
So am I hearing you say that it's, even though it's cautious, phased in, it's not necessarily tied now to there being in-person learning at all grade levels? Or is that still a
So
goal?
it's not, so the new guidance is, and we're in agreement, is that we can have, is that cautious phasing in of starting with low risk extracurricular activities is part of that decision framework. And we are working with our schools to make sure that as we phase in extracurriculars that do have such an impact on our youth, that we're doing it in a safe, cautious, and appropriate way.
One last question. Do you know if sports activities are treated in the aggregate, like they're all going to be treated identically, or is there actually going to be like, hey, tennis team can play, football team can't play? Because obviously the contact level is completely different.
So yes, the guidance actually, so our current guidance for sports echoes the WIAA guidance. And there are low, medium, and high risk sports, each of which have specific restrictions depending on transmission rates. And so we do have guideposts that we're using. I think as our community transmission increases and there is increased risk from having people gather, from shared contact with the same object, there are multiple risk factors that play with sports. We just need to make sure that we strike the right balance and make sure that our protocols for safety are robust and in place.
Thank you. This kind of dovetails on Commissioner Menser's question, and this will be, I think, predominantly Dr. Abdul-Malik, but Director Slaughter, you may have information on this. It's being reported that U of W has a study indicating that students with in-person learning are far less at risk than if they go a certain number, go in a group a couple of days a week, and then they're off, and that same group comes in. Are you familiar with that study that's being reported on the news?
So yes, I have seen that study.
And I'm not asking you to question the validity of it, but is that something we're working towards or taking that into concert, or the school districts considering that as well in returning schools to face-to-face learning?
So on September 24th, I recommended a cautious phased-in approach to some in-person learning, which is that cohorted groups with hybrid. And this is also following the K-12 decision tree put out by our Department of Health of the Governor's Office in consultation. And so that is something that we've been working towards. However, with the recent spike, and we have, as you have cases in the community, that makes it more likely for COVID to come into the schools. So for a student to come in sick, for a staff member to come in sick, which, we've been seeing some of that in our county as well. So given that we're coming close to that high transmission zone, I have recommended a pause on phasing in the hybrid learning, meaning that folks that were already engaged in the hybrid learning, I recommended continue what was already phased in, making sure that we weren't seeing outbreaks, making sure that the right protocols were in place, and all of those things, while I watch to see if our county will level off in the moderate transmission zone, for which that hybrid model works well. When you have all the appropriate protections in place, with the cleaning and the distancing and the masking and all of those other complex bits that keep our students and staff safe. Or if we were going to end up in the high transmission zone, for which there are significant risks to in-person learning, and we would be moving towards recommending remote learning at that point. So right now, you have in our county, we have some students who are in that cohorted hybrid model, and we're watching their outcomes carefully, and we're watching the county's transmission carefully.
Okay, and this question is either for you, Doc, or for Shelley, because you're far more in contact with the school districts, so the superintendents, than I am. Are they all operating in concert with each other when it comes to your recommendations, or some saying, well, we're going to do this anyway, and we're not going to do it?
I have very much enjoyed working with our superintendents. We have very diverse communities throughout our county, so while our recommendations are being followed, the specifics are really dependent on the community being served. And so what we've been doing is working together to make sure that everything that happens is safe, and that we have the right plan and protocols in place for our schools that take into account the unique the unique aspects of each community.
You have anything to add, Shelley, regarding that?
No, I think Dr. Abdimalik covered that really well. The superintendent work very well together, very collaborative. We've had a very good working relationship with our superintendents. We meet with them each week. And like Dr. Abdimalik said, every school district has some of their own decision-making that they tailor to their specific, student and teacher population and community needs, but very much in concert with one another.
Well, I would agree. Each of our superintendents are exceedingly professional and engaged in the community. But that gives me good information. Thank you. Anything else, Ty? Okay. Oh, I see Commissioner Edwards is in now. Do you have any questions, Commissioner?
Yes, just on the monthly total that you've got going here on your report, do we keep the number of monthly tests that were given? I know we keep track of the number that tested positive, but do we keep track of the number of tests that were given each month?
Yes, we do.
And on that percentage that we seem to, continue to go up on, I think we're at 3.7 or something now in the past 7 days. Are we also getting a lot more testing done than we did when we first started out?
Dr. A, do you want to chime in on that one?
Sure. So we are having an increase in testing. It wouldn't when we look at that percent positive, that when it goes above 2, that definitely occurs when we're having a spike in cases throughout our community, and it does reflect kind of that balance between how many folks in our community have it, and it speaks to access to testing. So for that number, when that number is high, it means that there are many more people that may need a test that aren't getting it, because we're trying to keep that number below 2%. And so that's the proportion of folks that take a COVID test that then test positive. So if that percentage number increases, it's a sign to us that we would like to encourage that there are more folks in our community, and we would really like to encourage folks in our community to get tested, because there's a little bit of a decrease either in access or an increase in people taking the opportunity to get tested, even if they have symptoms and even if they may be at risk.
I guess just as a follow-up, I mean, we've been observing this now for the last 8 or 9 months. Does it appear that eventually the same number of folks in our population that get the flu each year or whatever? I mean, is it similar? Are we all going to eventually come down with this at some point in time as it continues to spread? I mean, I know we're talking about vaccines and other things, but I mean, those are down the road. Does it eventually take over a certain percentage of the population in general, no matter what? I mean, what we're doing is delaying that from happening, obviously, and we're getting better treatments every day as we move forward. But eventually, is that what people have to look forward to? We're going to come down with it at some point?
So that's a really good question. And I know that's a question that scientists and physicians are actually asking around the country and around the world. And my answer would be that it's too early to tell. We're at this point, you're absolutely right. A lot of our strategies are mitigation strategies to make sure that we have the healthcare capacity, that we have time to develop treatments, and that are effective, and that we figure out ways to protect those that are most vulnerable. And while there are multiple efforts working on a vaccine that we hope will be deployed and we hope will be safe and effective, it is possible that this could become endemic over time if we don't have a way to either suppress it through having our case counts drop to zero through mitigation measures. So the masking, the distancing, all of those things that keep people from getting it. Or if we don't have a vaccine that's developed that's safe and effective. But I would just like to reiterate that we are extremely early in this, in terms of figuring out what our trajectory is. And I have I am very encouraged by all of the efforts that are being made, both by our residents in terms of keeping themselves safe, by our healthcare colleagues in terms of finding new and better ways to protect their patients, as well as treat patients who have severe disease, as well as our colleagues who are working on vaccine development.
Okay, thank you.
Doctor, one final question for me and for the public, and please set me straight, Commissioner Edwards, if I'm wrong, but your initial question regarding testing and the spike, I took that to mean that are we only finding a spike now because we're doing more testing?
No. And so that % positive is really what shows us that piece. So if we were just doing just a lot of testing and the growth was just due to increased testing, you would expect a lot of tests and very few positives. So that % positive would be extremely low. Because the % positive is higher, that tells us that there's more COVID in the community and that what we're seeing isn't just a result of us doing more testing.
Oh, good. All right, thank you. All right, well, thank you, Dr. A. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
And we're going to move on to homeless strategies. And we have Keely Marino, I would believe. We do. Point, there she is. Good morning, Keely.
Good morning. All right, I will just give you an update then. So I'd like to start out with the Eviction Prevention and Rental Assistance Program through the Community Action Council, updates on those, because that's always a positive story, I think, to start off with. So they've served 460 households at this point. 871 future months of rent have been paid. 440 back months of rent have been paid. $1.3 million have gone out. However, there are $1.5 million that have been assigned. Some of them have not been signed by landlords yet. So we're at the halfway mark for ensuring that we get the funds to those who need it. There have been 928 appointments made And they have 450 remaining appointments. So last week, excuse me, I stated that the Community Action Council had determined that the 2nd of November would be the last day they would be making appointments, and they've extended that to the 24th of November. So for those who need it, it's there. Please go to the Community Action Council site, and there's very clear instructions on how to get that help should you need it. The City of Olympia, I'm sure we've all seen the news and read the Olympian article that they are moving forward on moving folks from Ensign Road. The official date is next Tuesday, October 27th. Today, Teal Russell, the homeless coordinator for the City of Olympia, will be, I'm sure, with code enforcement, noticing those individuals that are living along Ensign Road. However, they have been actively engaging with every one of the residents that is interested with the crisis response unit, familiar faces, and other providers in the community to ensure that people, if they need IDs, they can get connected with IDs. If they need insurance, what have you, referrals to housing. They did an outreach effort last Wednesday from 1 to 3, and they will be resuming that effort tomorrow from 1 to 3 with the crisis response unit, familiar faces, and any other outreach outfits that could come out and help with coordinated entry or referrals into housing, et cetera. At this point, there still is not an identified place for those folks that are living aboard their vehicles to go officially. So that is still part of the conversation. In similar news, I was able to go out and check in on the City of Lacey, and the Department of Transportation have been working earnestly to clean the encampment that is by the McDonald's on Slater Kenny, that interchange on Slater Kenny. They have come up with an innovative strategy where they are coming in and working with each of the residents to clean the site. They have posted no trespassing signs. So any of the folks that are currently living there can remain living there if they keep it clean. However, no other new residents can show up and start living there. So that effort is ongoing. I spoke with Mitch Mitchell from City of Lacey yesterday and Community Action Council. When I was there, they had coordinated entry was on site to ensure that people were getting connected to that service so they can be referred to a housing program if they desire. And they'll be continuing to work on that cleaning effort. So that's all I have for today.
Commissioner Menzer, any questions?
The camp that you just referenced at Slater Kinney, is that, I mean, you may not know, but I know sometimes you guys are so well connected to the communities that you kind of know how they formed. Like, was that a splint? Is that a new group of folks? Is it a group that moved from somewhere else, or how did that camp kind of get sprung up?
I know little, but I got a little of information from Mitch when I was out there. Some folks came from other camps. There was a resident who had moved from the jungle to Nickerson to Wheeler and then found themselves there. There was a couple that had just moved here locally. There are folks that have been and lived in various other encampments but have been moved on. Some older gentlemen I spoke with that were well into their 60s and had significant disabilities. That was their third or fourth time they had been moved in the past year. So it's kind of a mix up, but primarily folks that have been living in encampments in Thurston County.
Okay, thank you.
And exactly where is that on Slater Kenny?
There's an interchange off and on the I-5 ramp. And so it's right by McDonald's. They affectionately call it Hamburger Hill is how some people refer to it.
Good grief. Retro to Vietnam. Okay. I think. Commissioner Edwards, any questions for Keely?
Yes, I'm just curious. You said that they're cleaning up over there at Slater Kenny at that interchange and posting signs, and then the current residents will be able to stay, but no new ones will be able to come. Is that kind of just tongue in cheek, or what's the plan if new people do show up there? I mean, they're going to get arrested, they're going to get evicted. How are you going to know the difference? That's a good question. You know, what's going to happen?
I'm not 100% clear. Can you hear? I just got a message that my internet is unstable. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, you're coming through.
Okay, so, okay, so I wouldn't be able to answer that with any certainty, but my understanding is that, you know, the outreach coordinator, Mitchell from Lacey goes out there almost on a daily basis and knows each one of those residents personally or professionally. And so we'll be checking in, continuing that daily check-in to ensure that there aren't any new residents. If it is a trespass situation, then I'm assuming that a person who is there, who moves there, who's not part of the original residential group, will be trespassed.
That'll be an interesting concept if it gets into court, I guess. I don't see that as being a solution to that particular problem, but thank you for the information, though.
Well, Hamburger Hill goes back to May '69 in Vietnam, and a very good movie. My question is this, Keely, regarding the Ensign Road and those folks being moved out by the 27th, next Tuesday. Have we seen some already leaving? And if so, are any jurisdictions or residents, community, anybody calling regarding an influx of RVs in their neighborhoods?
So, you know, I'm not sure. I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to answer that. I haven't had a good lengthy conversation with Teal recently, so I'll be checking in with her later today. So I'm not sure. And then I personally have not received any phone calls, nor have I heard anecdotally that other neighborhoods are reporting higher vehicle counts. I know that there's some concern around the Indian Creek Neighborhood Association that there would be an increase of vehicles there. That is where that neighborhood has a Wheeler, Nickerson, and Westminster Presbyterian. And so they are concerned that would be the next spot.
And the reason I ask is everybody has the same question, where are they going to go? And nobody actually knows where they're going to go. And I'm not interested in stalking them, but to find out where they are so we can potentially mitigate and or still be in contact with them to refer them into housing, resources, whatever.
Yes.
So I know you'll keep an eye on that. Let us know, would you?
Of course.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Keely. Any other questions, commissioners?
No, sir.
Nope. Okay. Thanks, Keely.
All right. Have a good day.
We're now going to move on and review this afternoon's commission meeting for October 20th. We'll call the meeting to order at 2 o'clock in this afternoon. And pledge of allegiance to be led by Commissioner Edwards. Approval of the agenda and the meeting minutes from October 13th. And then an opportunity for the public to address the board.
Yeah, you may you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, you may probably receive public testimony related to the budget conversations that you're currently having. So we'll see.
Okay. County manager's update, agenda item number 2.
I don't have any particular citizens item that need to follow up.
Okay, agenda item number 3 is consent items A through E, and 3A is the auditor, MOU with the Evergreen State College.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. This is a new item. You have not reviewed this item last week. And this is related to, in 2020, the Washington State Legislature enacted RCW 29A.40.18, which required each higher education campus, in consultation with the county auditor, to open a nonpartisan student engagement hub in its campus. So this particular request for you is to approve an MOU between the county and the Evergreen State College for the county auditor to place this student engagement hub within their campus. There is a financial transaction with this, and it goes from, in 2020, $4,000, in 2021, another $4,000, in 2022, $4,000, for a total of 3 years of $12,000. This is, and again, a legislative mandate, and I believe this is a good MOU for you to consider. Where the money will come from is outlined on item 3B that we'll cover here after you have questions related to this proposal.
I'm sure we have questions because this is new to us. And Commissioner Edwards, any questions?
Not at this time, but you're right.
Okay, Commissioner Mensah?
Well, I guess I'm just curious about what's involved. I mean, $4,000 per year is a small amount, and I'm not sure what the state's asking us to set up. I don't know what a student engagement hub looks like, so it's hard for me to envision.
Yeah, is that okay? Sorry, can you hear me again? Sorry.
Kiosk or something.
Okay, that'd be better with the mic.
Yeah, can you hear me better?
Yeah, much better,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, but the student engagement hub is just a place where we can put voters pamphlets and information related to elections and encouraging voter registration to the students. That is the extent, I believe, related to the student engagement hub that is we place in the Evergreen State College. Did I answer your question, or you need additional information?
So, no, I'm good.
So is this a new RCW, or we've been
And
remiss in doing this?
no, this is in 2020. The Washington State Legislature passed this new RCW, so it's a new legislation.
And just for state schools, not private?
It's for higher education, the states, higher education, yeah.
So that will include St. Martin's,
It's-
SPSDC,
It's only one per county, I believe.
only one. Oh, okay, only one per county. So it's like, what I'm hearing is an unfunded mandate. I'm not saying it's a bad idea,
Well,
but
St. Martin's is a private school, so.
right, go ahead, Robin.
So this is not an unfunded mandate. And as Romero said, item B on this list
Yep.
is the grant that we'll accept from the Secretary of State that pays for.
Oh, good. Got it, okay.
You're one step ahead of me, Commissioner.
Okay. Oh, I am. Well, I think it's a great idea, but I should know where the money was coming from or how new it was, but I missed that piece. So very good. Commissioner Edwards, any questions yet?
I guess I'm kind of curious how many students are on campus. Is it kind of a good expenditure? That's all I've got. I think it's okay, but I just don't think there's many students over there right now.
I don't know how many students are currently attending, Commissioner, but I don't know if I can get that information before this afternoon.
I don't need it for this afternoon. Thank you.
No, that's a good question, but regardless, the law is the law. It's the first one we've had, apparently, a hub. So, okay. All right, go ahead with 3B then, Romero.
Yeah, thank you. And also including on the bill, which is the engrossed bill, Senate Bill 6313, it provides funding to county auditors for the implementation of the engagement student hubs in state universities. The county was assigned $25,000. And this particular action is for you to authorize the county auditor to execute an agreement with the Secretary of State to receive the funds. And again, the grant is for $25,846.41.
Okay. Go ahead, Robin. Assistant County Manager, Robin Campbell.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I would just add that payment has already been received, and it is intended to cover our costs for a number of years. So my recommendation is to deposit the funds into the election stabilization account so that the money is available to the auditor for this specific purpose.
Okay, commissioners, any questions?
No.
No? Okay. All right, thank you. 3C, Public Works.
Thank you, Commissioners. You did have the opportunity to review this item last week, and this is for your consideration, the execution of a license and indemnity agreement. And this is for a private citizen. This will be Mr. Lee Ingram. to place a water and septic line under the Summit Lake Road. This is an agreement that we entertained with property owners where they'd like to cross with their own utilities a county road. In this case, the property owner owns properties on both sides of the road, and they would like to extend water and sewer to be able to utilize their land on the other side. Last week, you had a conversation whether there was an opportunity to have a single line because you have entertained the same issues, the same requests in the last couple of months. And unfortunately, the requests that you have received are way far apart. They're consolidating the crossing becomes a little bit financially impractical. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Gary, any questions?
No, sir.
Ty?
No.
No. Development Review Manager Todd Mason, thank you for joining us. Do you have anything to add?
I don't, thank you.
Okay, well, then we're moving on. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
3D, Human Resources, benefit contributions.
Yeah, this is a brand new item, but not necessarily new to you because you had a briefing last Tuesday where Maria Ponti, the HR director, provided to you some information related to set the contributions for medical plans for county employees, and you provided direction in what will be the plan that will be the base plan for county employees. And from that point, depending on the options the employees will choose, it will be a prorated rate. This is before you, since we are going to go through the open enrollment, which begins November 1st, 2020, and ends on November 30, 2020, where county employees can change and can health insurance and change also their family makeup as we move along.
Okay, any questions, commissioners?
No, sir.
Nope. And 3E is the voucher list. I trust we've, all three of us had a good look at them. Now, this takes us to department items. So agenda item number 4 is extending the COVID-19 emergency.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. You enacted resolution 15880, which you declare an emergency declaration on March 12, 2020, and that particular action took us to April 15, 2020. The board also enacted resolution 15907, which extended the emergency declaration from June 23rd, 2020. I'm sorry, from May 31st, 2020 to October 31st, 2020. So resolution 15907 ends at the end of the month. And this particular proposal is for you to consider extending the declaration for local emergency due to COVID-19 through February 28, 2021. There is obviously as you see, you heard from Dr. Abdi Malik and Shirley Slider, our Public Health Director. The pandemic continues until we have somewhat of a solution, if that is such thing. In the meantime, we need to continue to be able to respond to this emergency, and this declaration help us to do so in a more efficient way.
Okay, my commissioners have any questions?
No, sir.
Nope, okay. 4B, external CRF contract amendments.
And this is an item for your consideration. We'll put a little bit of more details in terms of the dollar amounts. And this is related to the item later on your agenda related to the CRF funding. You have allocated funds to the Thurston Strong as well as the United Way. And this particular proposal is for you to consider going through amending the existing contracts to allocate additional funding to them. And again, this is pending on your decision based on item number 1 under commissioners' items that is stated on your agenda. Depending on your decision, we'll populate this particular item with specific dollar amounts. But that is the intent, is to authorize the county manager to sign the supplement, the amendments to the current agreements with the outside entities, including Thurston Strong and United Way.
And we'll discuss this in greater length then under commissioner items.
Yes, and on the dollar amounts.
Right, okay. Seatmates, any questions?
No, sir.
No, okay. 4C, varsity custodial contract.
You did review this item last week. And as a matter of background, December 2016, the Director of Central Services negotiated and signed a contract with Varsity Facility Services to provide custodial services here in county buildings. The initial term was for 2 years, and it was extended. The contract and the current contract in place goes through December 31st, 2021. This particular outfit has been provided support and extra cleaning and extra activities related to the COVID-19. And this particular proposal is, since we had to relocate some staff from district court to the old jail, which includes also additional cleaning on a regular basis. This proposal is to amend their current contract to provide the same level of cleaning services to this new area in the jail for the district court staff for 5 days a week, which is close to an additional $815 a month, or $9,780 annually. And that will start in October 20th, 2020, if the board decides to approve this amendment. Robin Campbell is here to answer any questions that you may have with this proposal.
Well, the first question I have is how many people will be moving in there and how soon will they be moving?
I believe they have already moved in.
So it's being cleaned and disinfected?
Commissioner, this is additional.
Oh, additional,
services.
okay.
As you probably have noticed, there is varsity employees who come maybe 2-3 times a day.
Yeah.
Just go around county facilities to clean the high touch areas. And that is the enhanced cleaning that they are providing. And that is part of the contract.
Okay. Ty, any questions?
I haven't seen this new area, and I intend to go to take a look, but I'm not sure what part of the jail they're in and how you access it. Do you access it from, is there a way to access it other than through the main doors of the exterior doors of the jail that I used to come in as a lawyer, or is that how people are coming into that area to work?
So maybe Jason can answer the logistic type questions.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jason Ash, Facilities Manager. Commissioner Mesner, yes, they are accessing that through the main door. That is the only access. The sheriff did not want access through their department by the elevator. So currently that is how county employees and the clients are entering the probation office.
How do they get in without Ken to open the doors and let them in?
We are leaving that.
That's kind of a real question. I mean, how do they get through that kind of door?
We are leaving that door unlocked during business hours.
All right, well, I'll come take a look myself and check it out. Thank you.
Gary?
No, sir, I'm good.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Romero. Agenda item number 5 is a CPED, and this is regarding the history book grant.
You also reviewed this item last week, Commissioners, and this is the Water, Woods, and Prairies book that was completed back in 2019 by the Thurston County Historic Commission and using a county grant. And back in October 15, 2019, the board director and staff, they needed to create a grant process as to how you would like to assign those books into the community. Staff went through that process, the grant process, and received applications. They reviewed that on January 14, 2020. As a result, the staff briefed the board on February 11, 2020, where they're recommending awarding the books to the Olympia Historical Society and the Bigelow House Museum. It has taken us a little while to go through this process due to the pandemic. But again, this is, I believe, the last step the board directed in order to get to the point of distributing the books, and those will be made available to the general public. And I believe Josh Cummins is sitting here for, oh no, Jeremy's here, if you have any questions.
So if I might jump in real quick and steal a little bit of Jeremy's thunder. So I am Joshua Cummings, the Director of Community Planning and Economic Development, and this is the culmination of a really big deal. This is a unique item. This is the book of the history of Thurston County, and this process has been ongoing for about a half a decade, if not longer, in terms of the writing and the publishing and getting all the copyrights to all the pictures. The Heritage Commission for Thurston County has done amazing work getting this put together, but it languished in terms of how the process was going to work to not have a gifting of public funds. And over the last year and a half or so, Jeremy Davis and our prosecuting attorney, Travis Burns, have worked out a process that is legally sound, makes sense, and gets this book out into the world so that our community can share and have pride in its heritage. And I just wanted to say a huge thanks to Jeremy and to Travis and to the Heritage Commission. I know the commissioners have heard from our Heritage Commission on trying to get this thing going forward. It has never stopped since Jeremy and Travis got on board. So huge thanks to Jeremy, and I'll let him take it away in terms of the technical details.
Yay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jeremy Davis with Thurston County Community Planning and Economic Development, and thanks for having me here this morning. Yeah, so as County Manager Chavez and Director Cummings have both mentioned, the book is long in coming and long overdue to come to the board so we can get it out to the public. And so I'm really excited about today. And at today's agenda item, we're going to have several guests to come and do a short presentation to the board. So we'll have two guest speakers. One is former Chief Justice Gary Alexander, who's the current president of the Olympia Historical Society and Bigelow House Museum, and also one of the book authors. And then Sandy Kroll, who's one of the primary authors and book editor. So they'll be coming to talk to you this afternoon. And we may also have Rob Kirkwood, who's the Historic Commission Chair, as well as Shannon Stevenson, who is with the Olympia Historical Society and Bigelow House Museum. So we're very excited to get this off the ground and get this to the public. We've been working with the county PIO on a press release and getting information ready for the website. And she have a team member getting the signed copies, and she'll be bringing them to you later on today before the meeting. But again, I'm really excited to get this out to the public. It's a great book and has a lot of wonderful information on Thurston County's histories and the longstanding families in Thurston County, like Commissioner Everett's family, and many others. So
This is exciting. Any questions or comments, Ty?
Nope, I read the book earlier this year, and I'm happy to see it reach the public.
Very cool. Gary?
No, just thank you for putting that all together, Jeremy.
Yes, thank you for putting it all together. Are we going to have, is Gary Alexander going to be speaking? Are these folks just presenting and showing up, or how many are talking?
Yes, sir. So Gary Alexander and Sandy Kroll will both be giving a short presentation. They're going to tag team that presentation. So we're going to start. I'm going to do a short introduction this afternoon of the agenda item itself, and then I will turn it over to Sandy Kroll, who will start talking about the book, and then she'll turn it over to Gary Alexander to talk about Olympia Historical Society's role in the distribution of the book.
And it's just a verbal presentation, or are they using PowerPoint and sharing screen, all that stuff?
They're using PowerPoint and sharing the screen, sir.
Okay.
And Sonia's actually been practicing with Sandy on how to do all that. So.
Okay. So it's coming, Romero.
Say that again, I'm sorry. I missed
I'm
that
just saying it's coming. You're going to have to share a screen. All right. Well, thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Josh, very much. Can't wait. Thank you. That's going to be cool. All right. 5D or 5B rather. Bravo, extension ordinance for economic security and relief.
Yeah, this is for your consideration, Commissioners, to set a public hearing for November 17, 2020, at 3 in the afternoon in this room for you to receive public testimony related to an extension of the permit deadlines. You have already enacted on this early in the year, where the board has determined the COVID-19 has provided an impact to the development community, and they have not been able to pursue with their plans, and their permits were lapsing during this year. And this proposal is for you to take public testimony and to extend the building permits deadlines to December 31st, 2020. I believe the board was briefed on this, and this is following the direction of the board to go ahead and set the public hearing. Brett Burris is here to answer any questions related to this proposal.
Good morning, Brett. Anything further to add?
Good morning, Brett Burris with Community Planning Economic Development. No, sir, that was well summarized by the county manager.
All right. Gary, any questions?
No, sir.
Ty?
I know we've got various sets of deadlines, and I thought last week there was discussion about a set of deadlines moving to March. Was that the septic or environmental health? Am I getting confused, or?
You're correct. Last week was the environmental health under the sanitary code, which the two items are aligned. Yes.
Okay, just making sure we didn't have typo there.
Yeah, you're tracking.
Okay. Jeremy, anything?
No, sir. I'll be presenting for Brett this afternoon, so.
Okay. Josh, do you have a copy of that book? Got it. Do you have any questions on this topic, 5B? Or comments?
I think Brett has done a great job, and I'm happy that Jeremy's there to kind of pick up the ball since he'll be on the screen anyway.
Good. Okay, thank you. Moving on to 5C, setting a public hearing for interim emergency housing ordinance.
Yeah, the purpose of this public hearing is for you to consider public testimony related to the renewal of the interim regulations for emergency housing for homeless encampments established by the board in June 25th, 2019 under Ordinance 15792. These interim regulations were renewed by the board on June 9th, 2020 under Ordinance 15902, and that's set to expire on December 9, 2020. The board was briefed about this expiration, and the board provided direction to staff to set up a public hearing for you to consider extending this interim regulation for another 6 months. And that is the time period in which the board will extend any interim regulations. And before the board can take any action on any interim regulations, you need to set up a public hearing. And this is the item before you. I believe Leah Davis is here to answer any questions you may have.
Good morning, Leah. Thanks for joining us. Do you have anything to add?
Good morning, Leah Davis, CPED, Community Planning. That was an excellent summary by Mr. Chavez. I have nothing to add.
Gary, any questions or comments?
No, sir.
Hi?
No.
Nope. All right. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. 5D, David, setting a public hearing for final regulations to amend Chapter 14.38 of the floodplains.
This is a follow-up to an action that you took back in June 16, 2020 under ordinance number 15905. And it was related to an interim flood hazard changes under Chapter 14.38 of the Thurston County Code. As you may recall, I appreciated the diligence of the board to take this action on an interim basis because the Federal Emergency Management, FEMA, requires for us to update the code by June 19, 2020. So you took a prompt action to make sure that we meet the requirements of FEMA, which at the end provides benefits to the citizens who live in the floodplain. Now, this proposal for you is for you to take public testimony before you take an action making those regulations permanent in the Thurston County Code. Since the interim regulation expires January 31st, 2000. Okay, sorry, I'm off. So Jeremy is here to answer any questions. I was just reading a different script.
Welcome to my world. Go ahead, Jeremy. Anything?
Good morning again, Commissioners. Yeah, so currently our interim regulations that the board adopted in June of this year expire in January of 2021. So we'll need to replace them with permanent regulations or renew that. So the proposal for this public hearing is to enact the permanent regulations and changes to our county code. And again, the permanent regulations we're proposing to amend the code with are not, there's no changes from what the board had adopted in June. So it's the same thing, we're just making them permanent. And again, the amendments will add technical definitions and clarifications and rewording required by the Department of Ecology and FEMA. They indicate records the county needs to maintain. They add cross-references, and they add a new section for the agricultural flood sanctuary structures. And again, we're just adopting the regulations the board approved in June as permanent regulations.
All right, Ty, were you done?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead, Ty.
No, Jeremy just hit the highlights there, and I was curious. I attended 2 webinars this last week on floodplain management regulations, so I have a little better idea of what we do and why we do it, and so I was curious exactly what we changed in June, because I probably understand it a little better now, but thank you.
Gary?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 6, information technology contract award for aerial imagery services, 6A.
Yeah, this is a new item for you today, but not necessarily a new item that you're tracking on this. This particular proposal is for you to consider signing a contract with Eagle Technology Corporation for $866,044. The assessor's office recently approved to utilize the county relief funding to obtain the what they call the aerial imagery, and I think is a little bit different. It has a perspective, a 3D perspective that allows the assessor and his staff to do assessments on their properties without having to go out in the field. This particular county relief funding was reviewed by the internal auditor and was determined it was adequate to utilize this funding. So in 2020, this contract will utilize $330,033, which is funded by the CARES money, and also included in this contract, additional flights that will be completed in 2022 and 2024 at a cost of $345,672.81 and $190,338.28 respectively. As we had a discussion with the board, those additional costs in 2022 and 2024 will have to be covered either by the general fund or allocations across the departments as the indirect cost, and that decision needs to be made perhaps later down the road. Also, this contract has the options to renegotiate the scope of work for the second and third flights, and also allows the county to terminate the agreement if we don't reach a consensus or an agreement as to how the next flights will be flown. Anyways, this is, I hope this is not a new item for you. This is just getting to the point of getting authorizing the director of IT, Dennis Osorio, to sign this contract. And if you have any questions, Dennis Osorio and Brian Ferris are here from IT to answer any questions related to this proposal.
Dennis, do you have anything to add?
Good morning, Commissioners. Dennis Osorio, IT. No, I mean, I just want to thank everybody in the county. We had a lot of folks working on this contract and turning it around rather quickly. And it was really a whole county effort to do that, from the internal auditor to Cody Fortman in contracting essential services to the assessor's office and a lot of my staff. So, and as well as meeting with the board already. So just want to thank everybody for their hard work on this. We put in a lot of time to get the scope of work and everything ironed out. with the vendor.
Thank you. Brian, do you have anything to add before we get to the commissioners?
Ryan Ferris from IT. No, I don't have anything to add. I agree with Dennis. It's been a lot of work, and happy on the progress we've made so far.
Good, thank you. And Brian and Dennis, thank you very much for making this happen so far to this point. Ty, any questions or comments?
Without getting into the weeds, because I know we've been in the weeds on this one, were you able to get some response from the vendor that, you know, smoothed over some of the wrinkles that we were working on a week or so ago? Or was that kind of delayed? Or there was another strategy of maybe delaying that for renegotiation of the second and third flights. How did that land?
Yeah, but we did push off the second and third flight scope of work and getting all that ironed out, but we just focused on this first flight, and we did get a scope of work that both the county and the vendor sit well with and meets everyone's needs. So we were able to check the box finally.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you. Appreciate that. Ramiro, it sounded like the numbers that you checked through, and I think you hinted at this to me midweek, but it sounds like we're getting a little more coverage with the CARES money than you had originally or that the auditor had originally outlined. Is that?
Yeah, that is correct, Commissioner. I believe the first number that you may recall was 175,000, but the internal auditor determined that perhaps it was a little bit more flexibility that we can probably reach up to 300,000. So that's the number that I provided to you. Yes.
Good news. Thank you.
So did that flight take place last Wednesday or Thursday when it was going to happen?
I don't have confirmation on that. I know the vendor had said they were flying last week. I didn't get I didn't know what date and what occurred, but I know they've been working with us through this contracting and been very responsive. So I do not believe I held anything up.
Okay, Gary, questions or comments?
No, sir.
And I don't know if the assessor's on the line, but he might know. Is he attending, Romero?
I don't see his name here.
Okay.
Any particular questions that you would like to ask him? I can follow up with it.
Yeah, just that one. This was really a hot topic because the vendor was going to fly the very next day. I just want to know if that flight took place. I'm presuming it had.
I would assume, since if not, I'm sure we would have heard that.
So that's it then. So thank you, Brian, and thank you, Dennis, very much.
I believe Robin had a question. I saw her.
Oh, go ahead, Robin.
No, you're good? Okay.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
7A, Public Health and Social Services, purchase testing team equipment needed for COVID-19 response.
So let me get that to you. I don't have the updated agenda. I don't have that item on my script. So
boy, the action on that is a half a page.
So I got a stump on that one. Okay, give me.
While they're finding that for you, we can move on if you wish, or we got Shelley on the line.
Okay, I'm tracking on the item. I apologize for not having my notes on the right alignment.
No worry.
And for your consideration, commissioners, is to authorize the Director of Public Health and Social Services to waive, first of all, for you to waive the competitive bidding process according to RCW 390420 under the emergency declaration that you're considering to extend it, but it's still under the previous one. And this is to consolidate a lot of contracts with a couple of different vendors to go ahead and purchase testing equipment, which is related to the emergency. You allocated county relief funds for this effort, and this is, again, the steps in which we need to take to purchase those materials. Mark and Shelley are here to answer any questions related to this proposal.
I'll start with Shelley. Anything to add?
Yes, sir. This request is to expand our testing capacity, as we discussed in previous briefings and meetings, to include the purchase of testing machines and equipment needed to expand our testing efforts across Thurston County. And Mark is our incident commander, and he can answer any more details.
Okay, Mark, go ahead if you have anything you'd like to, that's pertinent.
Yes, Commissioners. So some of this testing equipment, it's not only the testing equipment, but the resources needed to support that. So the vehicles will be support vehicles to bring out testing material, canopies, and anything they need on the site when we're going out to rural areas. We bring a lot of stuff with us. So that's what the support vehicles are for. There's also a testing lab, because right now we're doing all of our packaging and setting up over at Lily Row, which is getting kind of cramped, and we want to make sure that we have our folks safe and socially distanced. So we want to move that out of there, and this would support that, and we'd be able to put that over at the ECC.
Very good. Gary, anything?
No, sir.
Aye?
No.
Okay.
Maybe if I could add, just for the viewing public, I know that the proposal before you is a total amount of $560,631. And related to that is split on the testing and machines, which is $359,740. There's 3 4 cargo vans, as Mark stated, for a cost of $93,000. And for lab mobile trailer, which is $74,075, just for the viewing public, just to see the split of all the 3 contracts that is before you this afternoon.
Very good. We just answered the questions I had, Romero. Thank you. This is a very comprehensive action. I can't wait to get it done for our community.
I do have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a way, Mark or Shelley, to get or to ballpark kind of the capacity uptick that this represents? You know, 25% more testing can be done now when we have all this operational, or 10%, or whatever that number is. Do you have a sense of that?
I don't have a percent increase. We don't have testing machines ourselves right now, so this represents 10 Abbott machines that we're going to purchase for the county. And the bulk of that, the testing is the testing material. So we want to make sure that we have enough on hand to last 6 months at a time, so that we can test in the community, and then it's rapid testing as well. So right now, the majority of our testing goes out to a lab, and we have a 2-day turnaround. So this would give us that 15 to 30-minute testing capability. So we can locate these machines not only in our lab or at Lily Road, but in other facilities that we're partnering with.
Commissioner Edwards, this is what you wanted, right? This is what you've been advocating for?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So presuming this flies this afternoon, gets approved, how soon before it's all up and running, we're staffed and ready to go? You got the vehicles?
As far as the lab, we just got an email today that they're just waiting for our go-ahead so they can start the build. They said the build can be done by December 5th now. It's been pushed out a week, and then we can have it a week later for the lab. As far as the testing machines, those are in high demand all across the nation, but we're looking at that same time frame. By the end of November, at least have a partial shipment of our testing machines and material.
Will this, I know this is a service we'll be offering our community, but is this something that we could charge other counties, or if it's that hot demand, it's that rare, will there be any user income or revenue from it?
Not at this time. All the COVID-19 testing that public health is doing is free, and we want it to be as accessible to everyone as possible. Other neighboring counties and local health jurisdictions have some similar community-based testing resources that they are offering. And so this would be for Thurston County residents, and there wouldn't be any revenue associated with it at this time.
Okay, just a thought. And it'll be easily convertible, hopefully, after this COVID thing's over and the next pandemic shows up. Is this something we can reuse elsewhere for other current items, short of a pandemic?
Yes. Our hope is that our community-based testing strategy will translate to our vaccine strategy when we have vaccine. So we'll be able to utilize some of the same resources and locations and partnerships that we've developed in testing to help make vaccines broadly available to all Thurston County residents when we have that.
All kinds of vaccines, though? Like school-based and flu and whatever?
Certainly could be used for those type of vaccines and public health outreach.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 8 is Public Works and ILA with the TRPC for the Rural Community Support Program.
Yeah, you reviewed this item last week, and this is a renewal to a contract that we have the TRPC where the county receives federal dollars. And as a result, we made those dollars available to smaller jurisdictions in the county. They don't have the capacity or the ability to manage federal funds. This has been a very successful program in the past. And the money will be available to the smaller jurisdictions of about $275,000 in 2022 and $275,000 in 2023. However, the award to the county will be $753,000 to cover for all the administrative costs. You heard a little more in detail last week, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. And I believe Teresa Parsons is also here to answer additional questions you may have.
All right. Before I get to questions, Teresa, do you have anything to add?
No, I just think it's a good program for the smaller communities, and the TRPC and the small communities have both expressed gratitude to the county for considering this.
Very good. Ty, any questions?
No, I agree with Teresa. I'm familiar with this program. It's a great way for us to help our smaller communities in South County to do projects they couldn't otherwise do. So, thumbs up.
Yeah. Ditto. Gary?
No, sir.
All right. Teresa, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That takes us to agenda item number 9, where we report back on our committees and work sessions and such, or board assignments. And the county manager will review our upcoming schedule. And then we move into 3 o'clock. We have a public hearing from CPED, or on CPED, on the 2020 Open Space Tax Program applications.
Yeah, Commissioners, you have, as you stated, a public hearing where you'll receive public testimony related to 4 open space applications. 2 applications are those who used to be part of the assessor open space program, which they no longer qualify under the assessor's open space criteria, and they have applied to be considered under the commissioner's open space criteria. And we have also received 2 applications under the commissioner's open space criteria. The board was briefed on this, and I believe, Carissa is here to answer any questions you may have related to this public hearing.
All right. Teresa, anything to add?
Hi, Carissa Waters, Community Planning Division. No, thank you. That really covered it all. Thank you, Romero. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Carissa. Any questions, Gary?
No, sir.
Aye.
Just a comment for the public. I don't know how many folks are planning to come out for this public hearing, but given the length of this agenda, it's likely to be somewhat after 3 p.m. is my prediction. So you may want to plan accordingly.
Yeah.
Good thinking.
And just to clarify, you have a second optional action for you depending on the poll testimony you may receive. The only action that I'll probably ask you to do is close the public hearing. They will be up to the commissioner's diligence whether they'd like to entertain, depending on the public hearing, the next action.
Got it. All right. And then we're going to go right into, right after the public hearing, the Transportation Benefit District agenda. And I'm going to turn it over to the President Gary Edwards of the TBD.
And that'll be short.
Can you walk us through the agenda?
Do you have the agenda?
I've got the agenda in front of me. It'll be short. We'll call the meeting to order at around 3:30 or as near as we can make it there. We'll have an opportunity for the public to address the board. And then we'll have Public Works explaining several different issues in regard to the Transportation Benefit District. And those are descriptions are ratify the election of the Thurston County Transportation Benefit District from earlier. And we will talk about the 2019 Thurston County Transportation Benefit District Annual Report. And Matt will be doing that. We will do the 2019 Transportation Year in Review. And we will have a county road safety plan that will also be presented by Matt. And we will have very short discussion and then probably an adjournment.
And I believe the county engineer is Scott Lindblom. Yeah, it's right there. If you have any
Anything to
questions.
add, Scott?
Yeah.
I don't, Commissioner. You covered the items quite well. And there will be the 4 items. And I understand that you have a 4 o'clock commitment, which we are aiming to be completed by.
Thank you very much, sir. That's my report to the chair of the board.
Ty, any questions on any of these topics?
Yes, there's a topic on the ratification of election. Can someone remind me who is being ratified as the vice president of the Transportation Benefit District?
Yeah, on January 7th of this year, the ratification appointed Commissioner Edwards as the president, Commissioner Menzer, yourself as the vice president, and Commissioner Menzer as the member.
I get two spots?
Yeah.
Oh, did I say 2? I'm sorry. Commissioner Hutchings as the member. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I thought, yeah, you got 2 spots. But that'll change in January.
Or maybe you're twin. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So if we do run long, then I just wanted to make sure I'm prepared in case it sounded like Commissioner Edwards may have a 4 o'clock stop.
Okay, we got it.
Thank you. No other questions.
Thank you, Scott.
All right, thank you.
It is now 10:25. We're going to take a 10-minute break. 10 minutes. We'll be back at 10:35. We're in a recess. Thank you. Welcome back to the County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session for October 20, 2020. And we're continuing on. We're going to review the agenda for next Tuesday, October 27th. And we'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Chair Commissioner Mincer, approval of the agenda and the meeting minutes from today, opportunity for the public to address the board, and then any county manager update if there is any. Then we get into consent items A, B, and C. The first one is 3A, Treasurer authorizing the sale of tax title property via private negotiations with the City of Rainier.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Commissioners. Under RCW 36.35120, 36.35130, 36.35150, and Thurston County Code 2.105 defines the authority to sell tax title property. Tax title property becomes under the custody of Thurston County when a property owner is delinquent on their property taxes. And when there is no bidders on a tax foreclosure action, that's when the county takes ownership of this. And no ownership is in custody because this property belongs to the citizens of Thurston County. And those properties remain under the custody of Thurston County until we have the opportunity to sell this property via private negotiation. In this particular case, this tax title property is located within the boundaries of the City of Rainier, is a 0.23 acres, and the proposed sale price is $1,585.50. And this is a follow-up to the an email that you received from the Mayor of Rainier requesting that this property be, at that point, was given to the City of Rainier. Unfortunately, the county cannot just give a tax title property. It has to be a financial transaction. The City of Rainier has submitted an application to engage in a negotiation with the Treasurer's Office, and this is the result of that particular proposal. I believe Jed Gadman is here, to our County Treasurer, to answer any questions related to this particular item.
Welcome, Treasurer. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, good morning. Jeff Gadman, Thurston County Treasurer. It just, there is authority in the law if municipality in which a tax title property is located and they express an interest to acquire property for municipal purposes or public purposes, then we can enter into this negotiation. This will not put the property back on the tax rolls, but it will benefit the residents of the City of Rainier.
Okay. Ty, any questions of the Treasurer? Or
Can you remind me of the size and location of the parcel?
The size is 0.23 acres and is located on Easy Street Southeast.
It's in the plat Trotter Downs. So basically it is about the size of most of the lots out there. It was reserved by the developer as an eventual access point. One of the developers of Trotter Downs, which is a residential development, also owned the property on Binghampton Street where there used to be a landscape supply business. And this parcel runs between the two of those. And I think the original idea was there would be access to whatever the future development on that other piece would be. But for whatever reason, the taxes were not paid on it and it ended up in tax title.
Gary, any questions? Or does that answer your question, Ty?
Yep.
Okay, Gary?
No, I think that answers mine.
My question is, Jeff, the City of Rainier would own this piece then, and then after that, they can do whatever they want to with it.
Well, so part of this process with these tax title is they have to express that they're going to hold it for public benefit. So there is that, they've publicly stated that. But yes, for whatever they want to use it for, it is on the face of the plat designated as a tract, specifically as an access. So they would need to go through whatever process they have to go through to get that plat amended in order to use it for anything other than an access.
Okay, because I was wondering if they don't have to keep it for public access in perpetuity, then, and it doesn't matter if it's Rainier or any jurisdiction when it comes to tax title, they can flip it.
Well, they could sell it if they eventually determine that their original idea won't pan out, but there's still that restriction on the face of the plat. This is intended as an access point for this plat. Right now, it cannot be used for anything else.
Okay. All right, thank you. I have no other questions. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
3B is Public Health and Social Services, a resolution establishing positions.
Yeah, for your consideration, Commissioners, for you to establishing a community health nurse 2 with an end date of December 31st, 2022. And this is intended to continue to respond to the emergency. This particular position will be doing the infection control. It will work directly with the health officer, and it will be also providing assistance on congregate facilities, healthcare providers, schools, internal partners, and related community organizations. It's an interesting position, and the request will be funded through the CARES money through December of this year. And I believe for the remainder of the time, most likely will be funded, hopefully with additional grants the Department of Health will be receiving. But again, it's one of those things that they will need to continue to respond to this emergency. And I believe this particular position is one of the essential positions that they will be part of that continued response. And Shelley's here to answer any questions related to this particular proposal.
Shelley, any supplemental information?
Yes, sir. In the recent consolidated contract amendment 17 that you approved, the funding source for this particular position was included. It is a 2-year funded position by the DOH consolidated contract. It's pass-through funding from Health and Human Services and the Center for Disease Control. And this infection control nurse will lead our outbreak response in the next 2 years for COVID-19.
Okay. Gary, any questions?
No, sir. That was a good explanation.
Yep. Ty? Nope, me neither. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley.
3C, the auditor's financial report. We'll get to the vouchers this next week. CPED, agenda item number 4, setting up public hearing for the comprehensive plan.
Yeah, Commissioners, for your consideration is for you to set a public hearing for November 24, 2020 at 5:30 in the afternoon here on the courthouse, building 1 in this room. And as a matter of background, October 1st and October 15th, the board was briefed related to the potential comp plan amendments, which included many different items. And also you receive some information from staff that also the Planning Commission held close to 20 work sessions between 2017 and 2020. And also they held a public hearing on August 19, 2020, where they took public testimony on these amendments, and they provided the recommendation for your consideration. You directed staff to go ahead and set the public hearing. In the public hearing, you will receive public testimony on amendments to chapters 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 11, and appendices C and D, which includes the future land use map, the long-term forestry and agriculture map, the designated mineral lands map, and proposed amendments to the mineral lands, as you heard on the briefing on October 15, just last week. Maya People did a fantastic job in laying out all the different items for you last week, and she's available for you today to answer any questions related to this item.
Maya, do you have anything to add?
I don't. Thank you, Mr. Chavez. That's a good summary of the consideration.
Okay, Ty, anything?
Maya, I guess this would be a question for you. Can these chapters be severed from each other? Meaning the board could approve 3 or 4 of the chapters and not approve others because there's more work to be done, or they need to be a block somehow?
We could consider separating them. However, it would take time because it's not, lots of the amendments touch several different chapters. So it would take time to pull something out of it. And that's why it's moving forward as a block.
Gary?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Maya.
Thanks.
Agenda item number 5, Public Health and Social Services, amending the professional services agreement.
Yeah, for your consideration, Commissioners, is to amend the professional services agreement of the Washington Initiative of Supported Employment, which extend the contract to December 31st, 2020. The current contract is on December 31st, 2020. They will extend to December 31st, 2021, and also will increase the amount up to $120,000, which is it will expand the scope of work to provide resources for training, technical assistance, individual technical assistance, and professional development for individuals with developmental disabilities here in the county. This particular proposal will be funded by the contract that we have with the Washington State Department of Disabilities Administration. I believe Annalise Cole is here to answer any questions related to this particular item.
All right, Annalise, anything to add?
I don't have anything to add, but good morning, Commissioners. I think that pretty much covers it at this point in time. This is a contract amendment that we're requesting, but as Ramiro reviewed, all of the funding would be coming from Developmental Disabilities Administration, so there would be no millage funding that would be dedicated to this. In essence, it would be pass-through funding that would allow us to provide these programs to our service providers that are serving our individuals with developmental disabilities.
Oh, very good. Gary?
No, sir.
Any questions? Aye?
No, good.
Nope. All right. Thank you, Annalise. Thank you very much.
Commissioners, before you move into item 6, which is Public Works, I have a couple of items that will be bringing to your attention next week, and I'd just like to give a heads up as to what those items are.
Thank you.
You may be seeing an additional Public Health and Social Services, and that will be a contract related to contact tracers. We're currently negotiating the terms of that contract. You might be seeing that contract for your consideration, and that will be paid by the CRF funding. You also will see an item related to intercity transit, and that is the IT agreement. They will have to maintain the Centennial Station that is located on the Amtrak. And that is a consolidated effort between the county and all the jurisdictions. Olympia, Mason, Tumwater, and there has been a long-standing contract that we participate for IT to maintain the Centennial Station. So those 2 items will come to your attention next week. I'd just like to give you a heads up. We're just working on the details of it. And
okay.
Robin has some questions.
Go ahead, Robin.
There is one other item that will appear for next week, and that is the request to set the public hearing on the revenue for the budget.
Okay, thank you.
And that'll be next week as well, because we already have one public hearing next week, don't we?
The public hearing won't be until November 17th. It will be an item asking to set the public hearing.
Got it. Okay. Commissioners, any questions on those 3?
No, sir.
Nothing? Okay, good. Thank you. We'll be looking for them. Agenda item number 6 is Public Works County Road Administration Board, the CRAB application.
Yeah, the commissioners, thank you. The Department of Public Works is asking the board to authorize submitting an application to the County Road Administration Board under the Rural Arterial Program for improvements on 183rd that is between Sargent Road and Highway 12. The grant itself is for $2.2 million and requires a match of $545,000, which is going to be covered by the county road fund. So the improvements on this particular location, I know if 183rd is a very narrow road, and that area is increasing in terms of development. And this particular improvements will enhance the lanes, will provide shoulders, and as well as will take care of the storm water. I believe Jesse King from Public Works is here and available to answer any additional questions.
Senior Civil Engineer Jesse King, anything to add, sir?
Morning, Jesse King with Public Works. No, I think Romero covered it all. So.
Okay. Gary, anything?
Yes. Are we going to be trying to, the county manager mentioned shoulders. Are we going to have anything there that's maybe expanded shoulders for pedestrian safety, bicycle safety?
Yes, there will be 5-foot shoulders.
Okay, that's meant to cover that topic, right?
Yes.
Safety. Okay, thank you.
Anything?
Are we talking about between I-5 and Highway 12, like that straight stretch of 183rd? Is that where we're?
It's between Highway 12 and Sargent Road.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Jesse, the 5-foot shoulders, separating that from the roadway, is it just going to be a fog line or rumble strips?
Fog line.
Fog line, okay. Thank you, that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. 6B, setting a public hearing for solid waste flow control ordinance.
The commissioners, this is a follow-up on a couple of executive sessions, I believe. And this is for you to set a public hearing where you will be receiving public testimony related to a proposed flow control ordinance related to solid waste management and handling in Thurston County. While counties in the state do not regulate solid waste collection, they do have the ability to regulate the disposal. And that authority is given under RCW 36.58.040, where counties may designate solid waste disposal sites as the exclusive site for receiving solid waste collected in unincorporated areas of the county. County enforces these exclusive designations through the local regulations, which is part of your public testimony you will be receiving. This is a proposal for you to set the public hearing for November 17, 2020 at 4 in the afternoon. So on that day, you will have back-to-back public hearings. And also you will have training scheduled for the whole day. And the board meeting will be canceled that day. So you'll have the opportunity to attend the training through WASAC. And that's the yearly conference. There's going to be a virtual conference. And then you will move into the public hearings at 4 o'clock. I believe we'll have 2 if the board approves. And then you move into the revenue public hearings, which begin at 5 in the afternoon, I believe. Any questions related to this?
Gary?
No, sir.
And Ty?
So on my desk is a draft from July 20th, 2020. Is that the current latest and greatest flow control draft that will go to the public hearing?
I have Karen answer that question.
Thank you, Commissioners. Karen Weiss, Interim Solid Waste Manager, Public Works. No, Commissioner Mincer, there have been some changes incorporated since that draft. We'll be sure and get that most current draft of the flow control to you.
Thank you. I seem to recollect that. I don't get to take notes because it was executive session, but I remembered that this was not the final draft that we were. So thank you. As soon as you can get that, would be great.
That would be very helpful, Karen. Thank you. Gary, anything? No?
No, same question. I'd like to see the final draft. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
6C, Setting a public hearing for park impact fee rate schedule update.
Yeah, Commissioners, this particular public hearing is for you to receive public testimony related to changes on the park impact fees. Staff briefed the board, and early in the year, were you directed to go ahead and have the public hearing. As you will see, this is scheduled on November 17th at 5 p.m. And it will be back-to-back because it's related to revenues associated with the upcoming 2021 budget. Carrie Hebden is here to answer any questions you may have, but I believe this is a briefing you might recall.
All right, any questions of Carrie? Gary?
I guess I'd kind of like to hear a little bit of a refresher on this. Is that possible?
Yeah.
Me too.
So
Sure.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Romero. I'm sorry.
Go for it. You're the
Well,
expert.
we did a large public outreach as part of putting the draft together. We did that through a social media outreach effort, and we got a lot of respondents. And so we got a lot of public input that helped influence putting the draft posts together, and that's Parks, Open Space, and Trails Plan. So we did get a lot of public input to that. We feel it's a good plan and not a lot of significant changes in the plan except for a level of service change that we've discussed previously. But yeah, that's pretty much where we are. We go for a public hearing on the 27th, and then we'll move to adopt that document, hopefully.
It's on the 17th?
Correct.
Maybe
on the
I
17th. Go ahead, Romero.
Maybe I can add additional details if I may, Carrie.
Sure, please.
Yeah, the proposed impact fees and the briefing that you receive will increase the single family fees by $176, mobile home fees by $144, and will decrease the multifamily fees by $56. So that is the major changes on this proposed park impact fees. You may also recall that at the same briefing you received the traffic impact fees briefing, but the board did not provide a direction on the traffic impact fees, and that is going to be a subject of a future briefing with the board later this year, maybe next year. So 2 separate fees.
Gary, anything further?
I guess the only question I'd have as a follow-up on the fee aspect of it is there any room for any wiggle room, any negotiation? I mean, is it a set dollar amount in all those categories that the county manager mentioned, or are those subject to adjustment?
I believe the board has the latitude to implement any type of fees as you see fit. So there is, you will receive public testimony based on this proposal, but then the board can decide how and how much those fees should be in place.
Okay, thank you.
Gary, were you looking at, I just want to clarify your question. Were you looking at, can the board say applicant A has to pay the full amount, applicant B only pays 50%, applicant C, and we just, each time we could vary that? Is that what you're looking for?
No, I was thinking more in the area of the dollar amount being assessed, if that was set in concrete or not, that's all.
Okay.
Whether there was any flexibility there.
Go ahead, Ty.
A couple of things. So I think that Carrie we have 2 agenda items here. There's a public hearing on the post plan, and then there's the agenda item, which is setting a public hearing on the impact fees rate schedule. I've hung on to my notes that we went through with the board, and I had to kind of refresh my memory as well. So I appreciate Commissioner Edwards asking for that, because I'm looking at it and I see that the board did agree, I think, to kind of adopt the proposed schedule adjustment because, and there's a really good graph that shows this, that even with the adjustment, we're like a factor of 2 lower than other jurisdictions like Pierce County, Tumwater, and Olympia. What I remember and don't recall where it landed was there was a suggestion about implementing it, delaying the implementation of the new rate by 12 months or 6 months or some period of time. And I don't remember if the board delayed that after hearing public testimony or if a board expressed a preference about that. I don't remember where that piece of the conversation landed, but we had gotten some input from OMB, which talked about delaying it, and I had some notes that said that might be okay, but I just don't remember that part of the conversation if anyone else does.
And that certainly can be part of your final decision. If you choose to approve the fees as proposed or any changes that you might see fit, you have the ability to implement those at any given time, a delay of 6 months, a delay of a year. That's really within the purview that you have.
Okay. I remember the discussion and the options of delaying 6 months, a year, whatever, but I just don't remember where it ended up.
Yeah.
I guess I'm kind of in that same situation. We must have been pretty busy that day with all three of us having the same kind of questions. I wonder if we couldn't have a synopsis of what our notes reflected at that particular meeting. Is that
a review?
You want me to give you the meeting notes?
Not right now, but at some point, maybe we could get that.
Yeah, we can ask the department to give you the briefing notes. Yeah.
Would that help my seatmates as well?
Yes, it would.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kerry. Get on with your day.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Hey,
That
Kerry,
wraps up
Kerry, this will be your last public hearing.
Ooh.
Is that
Yeah,
correct?
well, I'm seeing a lot of last time things going on my schedule, and so and it's so I appreciate that. Thank you, Romero.
I do think if we're going to be talking about extensions and such, we ought to be talking to that gentleman right here. See if we can extend him for another year.
Yeah, again. All right. Thank you, Kerry. That wraps up that agenda for that day. And then we move into a public hearing at 3 o'clock next week on the 27th regarding updated Parks Open Space Trail. Oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, and I think that's where Commissioner Mason was recalling. This is the public hearing for you to receive public testimony on the in the Parks and Open Space Trails plan.
Got it. Okay.
And if I could say too, that's what I was referring to, and I apologize for the confusion. It is a little confusing since we have impact fee and the post plan coming forward. But clearly what we're talking about here today is setting the public hearing for impact fees.
Okay, so it'll be a public hearing on the plan.
Yeah, on next Tuesday, yes.
Okay. Any comments on that? Any further, gentlemen? Probably not. Nope. Okay. Thank you, Kerry. That concludes the agenda for October 27th. And now we're going to get into our other agenda for today, and that's the present proclamations and awards.
Good morning, Commissioners. Amy Davis, Clerk of the Board. There are no proclamations or awards for your review this morning.
Oh, good. Thank you. Advisory boards and commissions?
Could I get a question in there, Mr. Chair? What about Cancer Awareness Month? Don't we usually do something in October for cancer awareness? I guess I'd like to see us do something.
Yeah, let us look into that possibility, Commissioner. I don't know if it was done under the Public Health or Board of County Commissioners. But
I know that Nicole Woolsey is the coordinator on that for the county, and she does a lot of work. And I know we're in strange times, but I believe that we do a regular proclamation, and I think it's appropriate that we look into that. So, however we can do that.
So, Amy, you look into that?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any advisory boards or commissions?
No, Commissioner.
Information? All right, Brian Dominique, PIO, check in.
Good morning, Commissioners. County Manager Brian Dominique, Public Information Officer for the Board of County Commissioners.
I just have a couple updates this morning. First, Megan Porter, our public information supervisor, has been working on the Comcast franchise agreement. And today, our attorney sent that new draft franchise agreement back to Comcast. So right now, we are waiting to hear from them if they have any concerns with what we are hoping is the final draft. So more to come on that. And for me, I don't have a whole lot of updates, but we are doing something fun with our Facebook page. One of the recommended activities from the Department of Health for a safe Halloween is hosting a virtual pumpkin carving or decorating contest. So we're doing that through our Facebook page. People can send us a message with a photo of their carved and decorated pumpkins via Facebook Messenger, and we will share all the photos on our Facebook page prior to Halloween, so people can see all the cool designs others have come up with. So we thought that'd be something fun to do with the community with our social media. Pending any questions, that's all I have.
Ty, any questions of Brian?
No.
No. Ty, Gary?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Legislative updates.
I don't have an update on that, Commissioners.
Any public hearing decisions pending?
None.
Okay, now we're getting into commissioner items. The first one is CRF funding, status, discussion, and direction.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. And again, you have an item this afternoon, and this is related to some of the decisions that you may provide this morning. I'm going to walk you through this spreadsheet. This titled Thurston County Coronavirus Relief Fund Update. This memorializes some of the decisions that you have made in the past. I am not going to walk you through all of this because there's, as you may recall, there was many conversations, a lot of allocations that you made. There are a couple of objectives that I'd like to walk you through today. One is we have been diligent to make sure we track all the expenditures in the county related to both the internal and external allocations. Also, we have already, as you may recall, you set aside $2.5 million. It was until October 16, that passed. We were hoping the Congress will give us some flexibility to utilize the CRF funding. That did not occur, and I will walk you through as to what those commitments, at least at this point, will be. And third objective is when we walk you through when you authorize to have a lease on the offsite court rooms. There was also a question as to where the money will come from. At that point, the only option that we provided to you is going to be general fund. But also we committed to the board that we're going to be investigating the possibility as to how we can minimize the impact to the general fund. And I believe we found a way as to how we can maximize the coronavirus relief fund, as well as minimizing or perhaps eliminating the impact on the general fund as we move along and continue to respond to the emergency in 2021 after the CRF funding is exhausted. So let me walk you through the column that has CRF funding, $15.7 million. That is the initial allocation that we received. If you go across, you on the second round will have an additional 5.7, with a total of, including the public health, that we receive a total of $27 million and some change at this point. So, and that includes the $7 million that we received from the Department of Health to Public Health. You included some expenditures, some projects internally. And again, the projected expenditures on that is about $6.6 million overall. You also made external allocations. The initial allocation was $2 million to Thurston Strong, 1.5, and $500,000 to United Way. And also on the second round, you did an additional allocation of $5.7 million to external uses. We also still have the need of an additional $1.7 million that we need to continue to provide to public health. And also we're providing some information to you that we're going to be asking for a second round of requests for internal needs. And that amounts to about $340,000. And the additional external allocation, as I mentioned to you, the $2.5 million, it was set aside $1.5 million to Thurston Strong. We continue to, staff continue to suggest the board for you to follow up with that commitment. And also you set aside $1 million to United Way. Out of the $1 million, the staff has a proposal for you to award an additional $500,000 to United Way and $500,000 to the next item on your agenda, which is the Interfaith Works proposed project. And I will walk you through the details of that. So with all being said, we have a total expenditures, planned expenditures of $13,181, $13 million of change. So that leaves us just about $2.5 million that we need to allocate expenditures. And that is where what the staff is proposing for you to consider. Going through the many guidelines that the Department of Commerce has provided related to the coronavirus and the constant changes that we have experienced, there was an item in there, it's called substantially dedicated activities. And the substantial dedicated activities was related to public safety, public health. Public health is being funded by the Department of Health in allocation, so there's not a need. So the question was, what public safety substantial dedicated activities could be that we can take advantage to have a reimbursement from the Department of Commerce. The staff went through the assessment and determined that perhaps the Department of Corrections, no Department of Corrections, the corrections side of the Sheriff's Office is perhaps the only organization that has changed the operation since the pandemic hit. Meaning because they have changed absolutely everything, how they bring inmates, how they release inmates, and how they manage the inmates internally. So that is creating an opportunity for the county to ask for reimbursement for past expenditures related to corrections. I just want to make sure that this does not affect the sheriff's budget. None. What we're trying to do is maximize the coronavirus relief fund to build enough capacity on the general fund for us to continue to respond to this emergency in 2021 after the CRA funding ends in November, at the end of November. So the plan out of the $2.5 million that you see there on the last item is to set aside $500,000 for perhaps for additional public health needs and ask for reimbursement for correction operations of $2 million at this point to the Department of Commerce under the substantial dedicated activities. I'd like to stress, if that is the direction the board would like to take, I would like to encourage the board to be diligent in keeping that money aside and not be dedicated to any budgets in 2021 other than continue to respond to the emergency. And this where we're going to be able to pay for the lease of the offsite court rooms, as well as the additional correction officers that we may need to manage the offsite court rooms. So what we found a way today with this proposal is to eliminate the impacts or minimize the impacts to the general fund and maximizing the coronavirus release fund with this proposal. There is another deadline they would like to propose, and that's November 23rd. And November 23rd is the deadline that we're proposing for you. That at that date, if all the internal allocations and external allocations are not met, then the county will sweep those dollars back, and we will ask for a second reimbursement for corrections to the Department of Commerce. And this is the last attempt to make sure, and this is my objective, I believe is the objective of the board, not to leave any money on the table related to the coronavirus relief fund. So that's just really I'm trying to paint the picture for you as to some of the strategies that we're proposing before you, and really has two elements. Again, for you to confirm the additional allocation of $1.5 million to Thurston Strong, $500,000 for United Way. We'll have a conversation on the other $500,000, and authorize for us to submit a reimbursement for the operations of corrections to the Department of Commerce for $2 million. And we'll have another conversation close to the November 23rd deadline. We'll give you another report as to where we are on the expenditure rate of these funds. I know that I talk a lot. Hopefully I made sense, but I'm open for questions as well. As Robin is here, Janik is here. All the team is also in here, including Joe. We can probably answer any questions you may have related to this strategy.
I'll start with the premise. I agree with you. We should leave no money on the table. Send nothing back. Commissioner Edwards, go ahead if you have any questions or comments.
Yes, I guess I'm concerned that some of what we're hearing just doesn't match what we heard a couple months ago, maybe, but I understand where you're going with this. The total received on care fund says 27,160, 27,160,000. I didn't know that that's what the final added up to. Could you give me that again?
Yeah, so if you add the 15.7 initial,
yes,
right, then the second round was 5.7.
Yes.
And then public health received a direct allocation of 7.4. That amounts to the 27.
Okay. Okay, now my question is, if we're talking about, I don't know, covering, I guess, earlier costs with corrections and carrying that ability through into 2021, and you're saying we can do that same thing now with the courts, with that off-campus court and the lease and the overhead? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm sorry, what I said is by going through this process and get it reimbursed from Commerce on the past costs of corrections, that will bring money to the general fund. And that money will be used to pay the lease for the offsite courtrooms, because, and that is really the intent. Does that make sense?
That's the goal here.
That's the goal. Because as you may recall, also there is a need to increase correction officers to cover the satellite courtrooms. And absent on the current expense, we didn't have any other way to do it. And this is the best proposal that we have for you. And again, with the objective of not having to have an impact on the current expense. So what we do is we maximize the CRF funds, create capacity on the general fund to continue to respond to that emergency in 21, 22.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out how Commerce is saying that it's okay to go into 2021, but it wasn't before. Somehow.
It's not CRF funds, that's what I'm trying to say. So what we do is we ask for reimbursement for past expenditures. When that reimbursement comes to the county, becomes general fund.
Okay, I see where you're going with it. Okay, I'll listen to my seatmates, see what they bring up.
So the restrictions on the CRF and the coronavirus relief fund still is the same, at the end of November 2020.
Hi, any questions or comments?
Yes, okay, so I totally track the piece of what you said that relates to the corrections activities, because the only reason I tracked that so well is because I was sitting in the WASAC webinar last week where it was discussed, and it was something that was a surprise to me, but that's what they laid out. So that makes perfect sense. I guess what I'm confused by is, am I to understand from your presentation that we're allocating yet another $2 million to Thurston Strong and United Way on top of everything else that we've already allocated?
Yes, as you may recall, Commissioner, during those initial conversations, the intent was to allocate $1.5 million to additional, and based on what you have already allocated to Thurston Strong and $1 million to United Way, but with the caveat that by October 16th, the board will make a different decision, because we were hoping at that time the Congress will provide flexibility for us to continue to utilize the coronavirus relief fund, but that hasn't occurred. So then goes back to perhaps to continue that commitment for you to consider.
Okay, so that's
with the change, with the one change in United Way, although that was $1 million a 3 weeks ago, the proposal before you today is $1.5 million to Thurston Strong and only $500,000 additional to United Way. And the $500,000 is related to the next item on your agenda, which is the Interfaith Works project.
Okay, thank you for reminding me of that. Now that leads me to another question then. Because when we were talking about the allocation of this final amount between Thurston Strong and United Way, there was another proposal that kind of changed those amounts. So is it possible that we take this $500,000 for Interfaith Works from the 1.5 Thurston Strong and leave the United Way at 1 million? So that it's $1 million, and 500,000.
It is within your purview. This is a proposal from staff.
Okay. And then, so then follow up to that is, I know Jenica is on the line, and I don't know if she's the person to ask. I know she's tracking Thurston Strong. I don't know if she's been tracking United Way's allocations, or if that's outside the scope of her expertise. I guess I want to know. I was thinking originally to put a little more toward United Way, and now that we're going to potentially carve away some money, and again, I know the board has to discuss that, but if we're carving money for Interfaith Works, do you have an opinion? I guess I'll put you on the spot. Do you have an opinion about whether or not that those two programs and the needs and how fast the money is flowing through, does it make sense to carve it out of one versus the other? I know that's putting you on the spot, but it's a question I have.
Jenica?
I'm going to try Jenica. She could punt somebody else.
Well, I've been in contact with both United Way and Thurston Strong to understand their plans for putting the money forward, and both of them have identified needs in their respective areas for their allocations.
I'm going to make a pitch just because I remember, now that Ramiro has teed this up better, I remember I either advocated for or I thought strongly about advocating for a little more money to the United Way program. So now that we're at this point, I'm going to advocate that we not reduce their allocation of this final amount of money. But I know we did make that previous, I guess, commitment. So maybe our decision is already locked in place and we shouldn't change it. Now that I'm thinking this through.
No, it's not locked in.
But we are going to do that if we're going to take $500,000 for Interfaith Works.
So to be clear, Commissioner, there is not locked in place. You have the ability to allocate as the board decides. So if I may, what the proposal from Commissioner Mensah is, out of the $2.5 million of additional external allocation, Commissioner Mensah proposes $1 million additional to Thurston Strong, $1 million additional to United Way, and $500,000 set aside for the next item in your agenda, which is the Interfaith Works project.
That's my tentative proposal. I'd love to hear my seatmate's position either now or
Robin
later.
has something to add, I believe.
Go ahead, Robin.
I was just asking if Jenica would be able to briefly outline how each of these entities would propose to use this money.
Yeah, so for Thurston Strong, they have set up their grant programs to a higher ceiling than what we had originally gone through on the last 4 million to ensure that if additional funds came through, that they already had the structure and applications in place. And so that's still within the nonprofit grants, that's the childcare grants, the retailer and restaurant grants, the minority-owned business section of the micro business grants. And so all of those would just have a larger reach in the community and would maintain at the same grant amount. And so then United Way, they had been speaking with Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA, as well as some other community organizations. And those would also still be within shelter, food assistance, and some of the other areas that have been outlined before.
And where would the provision to agriculture related businesses, would that be?
That would remain the same at 730,000 that was allocated.
From Thurston Strong.
Jenna, may I follow up on that, Ty? It seems that United Way, I thought they were specifically addressing basic needs, food and basic hygiene products for families and children and such. Is that, but now I've heard that, have they always been, I might always have been, but are they now reaching out to the Boys and Girls Club and other groups like that?
That was identified as a potential avenue for additional funds if they were to come. They have not directed any of the CRF funding to those organizations as of now. They were identified if potential funds were to come in through this allocation.
To go to those organizations?
Mm-hmm.
And those organizations as nonprofits, they have access also to fund. Money's tied everywhere. And I know they're going through fundraising efforts now. But is there fundraising efforts that are available to Thurston Strong?
I know the YMCA are receiving funds through Thurston Strong, I think specifically through the childcare grant.
Okay. Gary?
Yes, are we going to be making any kind of a decision with these funds, in regard to that letter that we got from Interfaith Works? Is that going to be part of this, or is that a completely separate issue?
It is. That's what my suggestion is, to leave $500,000 for the next discussion. So just to make sure the board has the opportunity to weigh in on Commissioner Mensah's proposal again. Commissioner Mensah is proposing out of the $2.5 million on the line item labeled as additional external allocation, $2.5 million. Proposal from Commissioner Mensah is $1 million additional to Thurston Strong. United Way, $1 million additional for United Way, I'm sorry. And if Interfaith Works, $500,000, which is the next item on your agenda.
I guess I just briefly scanned ahead there on Interfaith Works, and I see they're talking about $500,000 from United Way. That's CARES funding. Is that this part of it, or is that a separate part they're going to get from United Way?
No, that was on it. So if you see the back page.
Yeah, back page, that's it.
Okay. So the $500,000, that's what I'm talking about, is whether we can send the additional $500,000 through Interfaith Works, through United Way, or find a different option to get to the same objective. That makes sense?
Okay, that's all. I just wondered how they were connected.
Yeah,
because oftentimes.
$500,000 that you related is exactly the $500,000 that we're talking about.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
So going back to Ty's proposal, after listening to Jenica, you telling us, Jenica, what Thurston Strong is, how widespread they are using the money, and the same with United Way, I'm more inclined to keep the 1.5 to Thurston Strong because they're hitting a broader base, it seems to me, but also propping the economy to keep other people from losing income and getting to the point with childcare where they can get back to work. I'm more inclined to keep the 1.5 and keep the 500,000 for United Way at this point, but still set that 500 aside for interfaith.
So we have two proposals, and I guess Commissioner Edwards will hopefully break that.
Well, I guess what I'm interested in doing is doing the most good that we can do with the funds that we have. And to me, the most good, if we can keep a business afloat or folks employed or people in their house, or that's kind of my goal, rather than going down to the bottom of the ladder and keeping those folks afloat. I guess that's kind of a harsh way to put it, but I'm kind of concerned in doing the best that we can in the long term for our community. So I don't think I'm ready to jump into that in a 10-minute discussion. I'd like to hear a little more. Are we under a timeline that we're not allowed to discuss this anymore?
We're in all the CRF funding, there's always in a very tight timeline. So unfortunately, if there's any information that you need today, right now, please let us know. What I'm hearing is two proposals. Commissioner Menzer said the additional $1 million to Thurston Strong. Commissioner Hutchins says 1.5 out of the 2.5. Commissioner Menzer states United Way $1 million, and Commissioner Hutchins says $500,000 to United Way. And both proposals agree on the $500,000 for the Interfaith Works project. So what is your thoughts on that? And I hate to do this, but we are in a very tight timeline.
Let me ask one other question before you jump in, Gary.
Okay.
Isn't what I proposed, contrary to what Ty proposed, isn't that what staff recommended? 1.5?
That is staff's recommendation.
Okay. And so I greatly appreciate what Ty's offering to split it so they each get $1 million, but based on recommendation of staff, and for the reasons I stated, that's why I just wanted to go along with staff's recommendation.
And I'm not opposed to doing that. I'm giving due deference to Commissioner Menzer's proposal. I don't know, is there room for some kind of a compromise as long as we make everything work? I'm inclined to go with the chair on it. I'm just wondering if we can solve two problems, maybe not completely as well as we'd like, either one of them, but I just want to do good with what we've got when we allocate it. I want to do the best good we can do.
Well, we are addressing several of these and trying to do the best we can as soon as we can. Go ahead, Ty.
I would, if what I heard Commissioner Edwards hinting at is maybe we split the baby here, because if the 500,000 for Interfaith Works could come equally out of the two apportionments, so that then it's 1.25 and 750,000. I could go for that as a reasonable compromise.
I believe that's a good compromise.
So spell that out. 1.25 where?
So Thurston Strong, if I may, so the compromise proposes Thurston Strong will receive an additional $1.25 million. United Way will receive an additional $750,000, and Interfaith Works will remain the same, $500,000.
Okay.
That sounds good. I hope Solomon had more time to make his decision, though. So, but I'll go for it. I'll go along with that as well, and we'll try to all get along here and see if we can't make it work.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. Decision number one, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Decision number two is on the proposed plan to, out of the substantial dedicated activities they see at the bottom, to go ahead and ask for reimbursement for past expenditures on the correction side of the business for $2 million, and set aside $500,000 for any upcoming needs on public health.
All right. So I just finished taking my notes. What did you say? We're on interfaith works now, yes.
No, and it's substantial dedicated activities, line item.
Yep.
2.5 million or and change. To go ahead and ask for reimbursement for $2 million for commerce on past expenditures on corrections, set aside $500,000 for any upcoming needs in public health.
Thumb up here.
Oh, okay, can we jump in here, Chair?
Sure.
Yeah. What'd you say, Ty?
I'm a thumbs up on that proposal.
Okay, go ahead, Gary.
I'm trying to think of why we wouldn't do it. You're kind of confusing me here. You're giving us one option is suicide, and the other's life in paradise. Kind of. What do you?
But my job is to bring all the items for you to decide. So I'm giving you what I perceive to be a sweet deal.
Yes, that's what it sounds like to me is a sweet deal. I have to say, we've got other county commissioners around this state that have gotten into trouble here recently, and I want to make darn sure that we don't get in any of that trouble.
We to the best of our ability, we have crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's.
Okay, well then, I mean, I'm thumbs up as well. I mean, I don't see an alternative.
Commissioner Hutchins?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Last but not least, okay, go back to the November 23rd deadline.
Yep.
I'd like to have authorization by the board for its staff to sweep all the coronavirus relief funds they have not spent or committed by that time, both external and internal, and then we'll turn around and request an additional reimbursement for correction costs with the objective that we will not leave any single federal dollars on the table.
No, I mean, that sounds almost like too good to be true that it's even possible to me. I mean, and I'm going to keep referring to Stevens County. I'm kind of bugged on that whole thing. I guess there was some personal involvement there, but I just don't want to read about it in January.
So do we have
yes.
A yes? Okay, thank you. Good with November 23rd, Commissioner Menser, Commissioner Edwards?
I'm following your suggestion on this one.
All right,
Sure.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Before we leave this and move on, Romero, I would just like to add that the sheriff has asked for a letter that we put this plan in writing. So I'll be drafting something for you to sign.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's news to me, but thank you.
Yeah.
And that based on you reaching out to the sheriff's office, as I did last Friday to the undersheriff, as to explain what the plan behind this. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
All right.
So next is ready to move to the next agenda item, Commissioner?
Property tax levy, yes.
Is the Interfaith Works, and this is that, I'm sorry.
Interfaith works, okay. I thought we dealt with that, but go ahead.
Yeah, you dealt with that, and this is a project submitted to, it was discussed at the Regional Housing Council. The Regional Housing Council unanimously supported this project, and I personally support this project because that's what we need. We need to create additional shelters in our community, and this project does that. And does that in terms of additional capacity, the social distancing of 40 beds. And this is a very nice structure, they're temporary structure they're planning to do. With the additional $500,000 that you have considered allocated to this project, I believe this project can be going off the ground and start materializing to become a reality. There's a very tight schedule the Interfaith Works has in mind. And as I recall, the schedule is to have this up and running, but I believe either late this year or early next year. Tom is here to follow up on this, answer any questions, but I believe I have a concurrence by the board to support this project by $500,000.
When I talked with Meg Martin, the executive director of Interfaith Works last week, I was excited. When I talked with, we discussed this at the RHC last week, I was even more elated because this is now not only doable, it's actionable, and it's in progress, and it solves several different pieces of the puzzle coming together in a very responsible way and doable. I mean, this is something that's within grasp. So I'm really happy about this. Tom, did you have anything to add to what Romero said before we get to questions?
The only thing I would add is the additional funding. They're looking for the range of construction is between $800,000 and $1 million, and so we're identifying approximately $900,000 of additional funding. So in addition to the $500,000 of CRF funds, we're looking to reallocate. Previously, we awarded around $850,000 to Interfaith Works under the shelter grant program to create the 15 new beds. As part of that fund source, they can use up to $10,000 per bed created for capital costs. We'd initially only budgeted $75,000 for their capital costs, so we're going to adjust that. We're going to say that we're creating 38 new beds, so it allows us to access up to $380,000 of that grant for capital. So we're going to use that additional capital resource. We're going to need to offset those. We're going to be used for operating costs. So in the coming months, we're going to be receiving, or in the coming weeks, we're receiving emergency solutions grants from the federal government under this CARES Act. And we will be looking to allocate some of those ESG dollars, federal dollars, to Interfaith Works to offset to support their operating costs for this project, to offset the higher amount of the shelter grant program that is going to go to capital. So, and we're also looking to use approximately $100,000 of our 2163 fund balance. We've received our last several months of 2163 revenue has been higher than projected. We projected a decrease during as a result of COVID. We've actually seen an increase over these last several months. So our fund balance is healthy in 2163. So we believe we have some additional 2163 fund balance we can allocate to this as well.
Ty, any questions or comments?
No, thank you for pulling it together. I'm pretty excited about this.
Gary?
I'm good, thank you.
Hey, Tom. How about if we process a quick amendment to the contract that we have with the Interfaith Works to see if we can have a direct allocation of the additional $500,000 from the coronavirus relief fund without going through United Way?
Yeah, we can look at that. We do have an existing contract with Interfaith Works with CR funds for the operations of their shelter. We don't have a scope of work for kind of construction. There may be some reasons to go through the United Way. So from a reimbursement, because we do require a reimbursement, and I don't know if Interfaith has the ability to pay this up front and then request reimbursement from the county. So there may be some benefits to having the United Way pass through these funds.
Okay, let's talk offline on that, the mechanics. Okay, thank you, commissioners.
And thank you, Tom, for bringing that up.
Yes, thank you all. And thank you, Meg Martin, for putting it together. All right, we're done with that one. You got what you needed, Romero?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, property tax levy.
Yeah, this is, Commissioners, a follow-up to the conversation that you had with Robin last week related to the property tax levy. The implicit price deflator came as a 0.602, I believe, short of the 1%. And you asked for additional information related to that. And Robin has walked you through this long spreadsheet, and I believe it's addressing some of the questions the board had at that time.
So thank you, commissioners. I had hoped to have a little more than 15 minutes. because this is rather complex at this point. You had asked for a significant amount of additional information. You have a large worksheet in your packet, and
Hey, Robin,
yes,
this is significantly important. Is this the only time that we have to discuss this before making the decision?
so we
Is
have
there another time we can discuss it?
We've got next Tuesday, and we can certainly talk about it at your check-in if that meeting is still on the calendar for Thursday, this coming Thursday. But I really need a decision by the end of this month.
The only reason I ask, and I can't turn to Romero, he's gone. We have 2 items remaining, and we can put those off, but that still only gives you now 14 minutes. We're still in a significant time.
It really is not long enough to go into this.
Can we add this to like the next Tuesday's commissioner items and make it number 1? So it's not at the last minute, we give it significant time. And also turn to my teammates, if you want to hear it now, in 15 minutes or fewer.
We put it on for Thursday at 10. We have commissioners check-in. I think this is the most important thing we should be checking in about. I don't want to be rushed either.
Yeah, let me look at Thursday. Thursday's a doable thing? Oh, okay, and Romero's out of the office on Thursday, but we still certainly discuss it.
He's coming right back in, Hutch.
Okay. I just want to give it due deference and a very good, deep conversation and understanding for the public and for the commissioners. Romero, we're talking about the property tax, and we don't have significant time to get into it now. We're thinking of putting it off till Thursday and or next Tuesday in the morning and moving on to the other 2 issues.
Yeah, you have a commissioners check-in this Thursday. Certainly you can dedicate most of that time to go through this information.
Okay.
I will not be there, but Robin certainly can facilitate that conversation for you.
When is the check-in on Thursday?
It's from 10 to 11:30.
Okay, it's not on my calendar. I have the RHC RFP workshop, but work group.
I can delay this item for next Tuesday morning and just have provide enough time to walk through this item.
Or better, that work group is only for 30 minutes. I can miss that and devote time to this. Okay, we'll talk about that offline, but we'll go ahead and put this off discussion. We won't do this right now because it's just too big and meaty.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Robert. But let's get to the next item then, dangerous dog complaint.
Thank you, commissioners. You received a letter dated October 6th, 2020. And this from Ms. Jody Alfier, where she, on this letter, she explains an incident that she had with the 2 dogs owned by the neighbor, her neighbor, and explains that on approximately 6 p.m. on October 5th, 2020, she was walking her own dog, Miss Alfier dog, which is a mix of, I think, a Chihuahua and she stays with Terrier. The 2 dogs from the neighbor, which is a Doberman and a full-size pit bull, came and attacked the Miss Alfier dog, causing serious injuries to the dog. There's, and I'm gonna, I'm just giving you the synopsis of this particular complaint. I have attached pictures of the injuries to Miss Alfier dog, and that is evidence as to the extent of the injuries. Also attached in your packet is a letter of October 18 from Miss Jennifer Roberts, which is a neighbor on the other side of Miss Zelfier's house, which came on October 5th on assisting while she heard all the many different the attacks caused by the two dogs, again, a Doberman and a pit bull. Also, I have attached with you is the previous complaints to animal services, because those two dogs have been, my words, harassing so this is not the first incident. And in fact, there is evidence early in the year in February that perhaps there was some issues related to those two dogs and their behavior. I have touched base with Elizabeth Petrich, your prosecuting attorney, and her and I agree there is enough evidence for you to consider declaring those two dogs dangerous dogs, and that is based on the Thurston County Code 9.10070. And it's pretty prescriptive. We need to have, the board needs to have evidence of the aggressive behavior of a dog, which is, I believe, it is in place. And also it states under this code that a potential dangerous dog, the owner, if it's labeled as such, the dogs must be secure, leashed, and under control of all persons physically able to control the animals when away from the premises of the owner or keeper. While on the premises of the owner or keeper must be secure, restrained by means of a physical device or structure such as a tether, a physical fence, any other physical devices that will prevent the dogs from leaving their premises. And also the dogs must be kept in conformance with other restrictions that may be set forth on this notice. Penalties and violations are part of that if the property owner, the dogs, continue to allow those dogs to escape unleashed from their property. We have prepared a draft letter for you, and again, is for your consideration. And the recommendation from the staff as well as from your prosecuting attorney is for you to consider declaring those two dogs. That is owned by Mr. Don Rollman, who lives in 5336 78th Avenue Northwest, to declare those two dogs dangerous dogs.
Wow. Gary, any questions or comments?
Well, I think I'm going to defer to Ty. He seems to know more about this, I think. And my only question would be, are we required in any way to do any kind of a follow-up investigation, animal control? Do they say they concur and all this? Or there's usually two sides to every story. And I just want to make darn sure that we've got it right, but it sure looks like we've got a problem there that we need.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. If the board decides to declare dangerous dogs via this proposed letter, Thurston County Code allows for an objection. So the property owner, the dog owner, has 10 days from this declaration in order to object in front of the board. So that gives you the opportunity to hear the other side of the story.
That's that opportunity. Good enough. That's all I was wondering about. Sounds good.
Before I weigh in, go ahead, Ty.
So I'm just seeing all this for the first time, the details, but there's a problem in the letter under number 2, on page 2, number 2, it says a dog shall be declared potentially dangerous if unprovoked it, A, and then B. And A and B in the code are or. So you can't just say A and then B, because that implies that both of those conditions have to be satisfied. When in fact, under the code, it's A or B or C. So we need to add an or, a semicolon and an or after property on sub 2A.
Okay, good catch. Thank you for that. We'll do that if the board decides to go ahead and implement this letter.
And based on that, I think, yeah, our process, to answer Commissioner Edwards, and I think Ramiro already did, is that our process is different under our code than the state law and under JASCOM, whereas basically we can just go ahead and do it, and then they can request a hearing to then bring evidence to have it considered. So it's sort of a front-loaded process that we've got in our county code.
I would just say, with deference to Commissioner Edwards' statement that there's two sides to every story, I agree with that. So I'm looking at, there's actually three sides. I'm looking at Animal Services report from back in, from 2017, where this is an issue. And in 2020, February this year, and it's the same issue, the same complaint, the same violator, alleged by the owner of the dogs anyway, and the same victims. And it actually says that dog-to-dog aggression in the county. There's a line here I found in the, let me just find it. It's in the last page, the very last page. It's February 2020 from Joint Animal Services. History of interactions, people not feeling safe, dog-to-dog aggression, previous reports about the owner coming onto the property and threatening her dog. That's it. Previous report about neighbor coming onto her property and threatening her dog. And this is from an independent investigation or contact. So I'm okay with this. I'm very much okay with this. And I feel for those poor dogs and the owners that have been victimized.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. So what I will do is making sure that we do another review of this letter, just to make sure we cross all the T's and dot all the I's. Appreciate the feedback, Commissioner Mincer. And we'll circulate for your final review and eventual signature.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And the last item is apprenticeship program report.
I have a couple more items after that.
Oh, we're here.
Second page. So as you may recall, in 2019, the board changed the code 15.20.50, which increased the apprenticeship program to 15% for projects above $1 million. Also within the code, requested the staff will bring back and provide you with a report as to how that has been exercised. This is the first report. And again, this is a little bit, not the entire year, because we didn't go through it the entire year after the code was amended. And I have asked Katie to walk you through this first report.
Good morning, Commissioners. How are you doing?
Well, I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing, Katie?
Excellent, thank you. So I'm going to go through this report real fast.
Can you introduce yourself, Katie, for the public?
Thank you. Caitlin Johnson, Executive Assistant to Ramiro Chavez at the County Commissioner's Office. So we're looking at this report for the 2019 Annual Apprentice Reporting. As Ramiro stated, there are several projects that Public Works have a delegated apprentice amount of hours worked per project, and that's for projects that are $1 million and over in cost. So for 2019, because that had changed to 15%, we have 3 that were at 10% apprentice requirements before the change happened. So it looks like Albany Street Stormwater Pond, you have 14%, about 15, almost 15% hours. You have 2019 Chip Seal Project and the Delphi Road 32nd and 62nd project. It looks like those all exceeded the 10% that was required at that time. almost even making it up to the 15% that is now required. So that's what we have for 2019. It also appears the projects completed, that they have done a rundown of different projects completed for 2019. Some were under the million, so those did not require apprenticeship thresholds to be met.
Okay.
And,
Any questions?
It's just a formal representation of the, and I believe in 2020, it will give us a much better picture as to how the changes on the code that you implemented will give us a perspective, the effectiveness of reaching the 15%.
Well, I think this demonstrates a successful apprenticeship program. Commissioners, any comments or questions?
No, Katie did a good job on her report. That satisfies my requirements.
Go ahead, Ty.
Is there, why does the second chart not have the hours and the first one does? Did the reporting requirements change, or are they different kind of projects, or?
So for the second report here, it does show the Delphi, Albany, and Chip Seal project, and that those were ones that met the apprentice threshold requirements. The goals were met there. You will see that the Grand Mound at the bottom there, that there was an apprenticeship threshold requirement, that the goal was not met, as you can see, but there wasn't a waiver approved. And under the Thurston County Code, there are several items that count as waivers that can be approved for them not having to do an apprenticeship.
I'm with you. I didn't realize that those top three were the breakout from the more complete list. So I'm with you. And then those all were subject to the 10% requirement. So
right.
That's what. Which,
next
you know.
you'll find. Sorry,
Okay,
go ahead.
you.
Yeah, I think
I just wanted to make the point that when I brought this item forward, there was not even a realization that we had this in the code and the 10%. So this is a step forward, is I guess what I'm trying to say, and it'll be another step forward next year when we have our 15% in place.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you.
If I can count on one hand how many times we've had 2 sheets of paper for our agenda, this is one of them. So go ahead, number 6, Romero, the hiring acceptance.
I think Robin had a question.
Oh, go ahead, Robin.
I just wanted to say thank you to Katie. This is actually my responsibility to present to the board, and we'd never done this before. So Katie offered to step up and do it, and I want to thank her for that and say great job.
Woohoo,
Thank
Katie.
you.
Yay, Katie.
You.
Okay. Thank you, Robin. Go ahead, Romero.
And the last item that I have for you is for you to consider lifting the hiring freeze for 4 positions. One is for the Park and Operations Maintenance Manager, and I think you, Kerry Hebden, is listening to that. That's to go ahead and hiring after he retires. We also have a vacant civil engineer, a senior civil engineer in Public Works. We also have the toll house supervisor, who she will be retiring soon, and would like to go ahead and start hiring that as soon as possible. And also we have a defense attorney. You heard from Patrick O'Connor. The Alex has moved on, and that is the intent to replace that. So I will ask the reverence from the board to approve all 4 positions.
Gary, any questions?
No, sir. I'm okay with it.
Aye. I'm okay with it. You got 3 thumbs up.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And that's all I have for you, commissioners.
No public testimony, and we're done?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us, and we'll be back at 2 this afternoon for the City Commission Board meeting. And this meeting here is now adjourned.